Deep in the heart of the forest, hidden from view, stands a cabin. To most, it's simply abandoned, an old structure left to decay. But to those who know its story, it's a place of nightmares. They say that if you stay there, you'll never sleep through the night, because something within the cabin stirs awake after midnight. The cabin is isolated, hidden among twisted trees and surrounded by an unsettling silence. Its walls are warped with age, the wood dark and damp, as though absorbing the energy of something long forgotten. The front door is slightly ajar, always left open, no matter how many times it's been bolted shut. The windows, smeared with dirt, seem to watch those who approach, as if the cabin itself is alive, waiting. Locals refuse to enter, telling stories of strange encounters, of visitors who left, shaken before dawn. Some claimed to hear voices, whispers in the walls, and footsteps just outside their door. And no one has ever slept through the night. The cabin doesn't allow it. Meet Ben, a photographer and explorer fascinated by abandoned places. When he hears about the cabin, he's intrigued, dismissing the stories as nothing more than local superstition. Armed with his camera and a sleeping bag, he decides to spend the night capturing the beauty of the place that others fear. As he arrives, dusk begins to fall, casting eerie shadows over the trees. The cabin stands before him, silent and imposing. Ben hesitates for a moment, feeling a chill run down his spine, but he brushes it off, opening the door and stepping inside. The air is stale, thick with the scent of mold and damp wood. Dust dances in the last rays of sunlight filtering through the dirty windows, and for a moment, everything is still. He sets up his gear, arranging his sleeping bag in a corner, and takes a few photos, admiring the eerie charm of the cabin. But as night falls, a silence heavier than before settles in, and Ben can't shake the feeling that he's being watched. As midnight approaches, Ben lies in his sleeping bag, listening to the sounds of the forest. But something feels off. The usual forest noises, crickets, the occasional owl, have stopped. The silence presses in, thick and suffocating, until he hears it. A faint creak, like a footstep, coming from the far corner of the room. He sits up, his flashlight sweeping across the cabin, but there's nothing there. Just shadows and silence. He lies back down, his heart racing, telling himself it's just the old wood settling. But as he drifts off, he hears it again, this time closer. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward him. He bolts upright, his flashlight flickering as he shines it across the room. The cabin is empty, but the sense of being watched grows stronger, the air thick with a presence he can't explain. Each time he closes his eyes, he's jolted awake by something. A whisper, a faint laugh, a cold breeze that seems to come from nowhere. He feels a chill settle over him, colder than any forest night, as though the air itself is thick with something unseen. He glances at the door, hoping for an escape, but finds it shut tight. And then he sees it, a shadow, faint at first, moving across the wall. It stops, lingering near him, as if watching, waiting. Ben scrambles to his feet, his hands shaking as he tries to open the door, but it won't budge. The whispers grow louder, overlapping, filling the room with voices that seem to echo from every corner. Shadows drift through the cabin, their forms just barely visible in the dim light, and he feels a presence closing in around him. Desperation sinks in as he realizes he's trapped. He tries to ignore the shadows, to find sleep, but each time he drifts off, the whispers return, pulling him back, refusing to let him rest. As dawn breaks, the whispers fade, the shadows retreating to the corners of the cabin. The door creaks open on its own, the early light spilling in. Ben grabs his belongings, rushing outside, his heart pounding, his mind racing. As he looks back, he sees the cabin, silent, still, the door slightly ajar as if inviting him back in. He knows he'll never return, and as he leaves, he understands why no one dares stay the night. The cabin, It never sleeps, and neither will anyone who enters its walls. Would you spend a night in a place that never lets you rest, or would you turn back before the shadows awaken?